When you picture military training, what comes to mind? Probably tons of push-ups, right? Endless runs. But what if I told you the secret to building the ultimate soldier wasn't just about pure grit, but about data? Today, we're going to peek behind the curtain at how the Brazilian Air Force is using science to completely redefine what it means to be combat-ready. So let's start with that big question. What really makes a soldier ready for combat? Is it just about being the toughest person on the field, someone who can push through anything? Or is there a smarter, more scientific way to prepare for the worst? That's the exact puzzle military scientists are trying to solve right now. And what they're finding is, yeah, of course grit is a huge part of it, but it's not the whole story. Real readiness, the kind that saves lives, is built on a solid foundation of science. It's all about moving away from that old one-size-fits-all mentality and really digging into the specific physical demands of a mission. To really get why this data-driven stuff is such a game changer, you first have to understand the insane level of intensity these soldiers are dealing with. This is what we're calling the readiness challenge. So the Brazilian Air Force started by identifying a list of what they call critical combat tasks. And listen, these aren't just bullet points on a PowerPoint. We are talking about the absolute most intense life-or-death situations you can imagine. Escaping from a crashed aircraft that's underwater, fighting someone hand-to-hand, carrying a wounded comrade to safety while you're under stress. I mean, wow. Right? So it becomes pretty obvious that your standard gym routine, hitting the treadmill and lifting some dumbbells, it's just not going to cut it. The real question is, how on earth do you design a training program that gets someone ready for that kind of chaos? Well, that's the exact problem the BAFT decided to tackle with science. Okay, so if you want to build a scientific model for something this complex, where do you start? Well, you go to the people who know it best. You ask the experts. And the process they used was super methodical. Step 1, they nailed down those 12 critical tasks we just talked about. Step 2, they broke down physical performance into 10 core skills. Things like strength, speed, coordination, you get the idea. Then came the most important part. They got 13 highly experienced military trainers, the subject matter experts, to rate how demanding each task was for each skill. And finally, they took all that info and crunched the numbers to build a complete physical profile. And when they analyzed all those ratings, they got back this one single, really powerful number, 0.986. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so what? Well, that number is a statistical score called Cronbach's alpha. It basically measures how much the experts all agreed with each other. And a score this high, it's almost unheard of. It's literally classified as almost perfect agreement. To put it another way, these experts were almost perfectly in sync about what it physically takes to get these jobs done. This wasn't just a bunch of opinions. Nope. This was solid scientific consensus from the people who know it inside and out. And that gives our results a ton of credibility. It's the rock-solid foundation for everything else. All right, so they have this incredibly reliable data. What did it actually tell them? Let's dive in and look at the physical demands profile for one of these elite tactical athletes. When you look at the big picture across all 12 of those combat tasks, 3 specific skills just kept popping up at the top of the list. Number 1, by a hair, was muscular endurance. That's the ability to just keep going and going. Right behind that was aerobic fitness, your engine, your cardio. And rounding out the top 3 was pure muscular strength. These 3 are the absolute bedrock of combat fitness. Okay, now this chart might look a little complicated at first, but stick with me because it's fascinating. This is the biomotor profile. The easiest way to think about it is like a physical fingerprint for the job. Each of those thin spidery lines is a different combat task. But the one you really want to pay attention to is that thick black line. That's the average demand across everything. And just look at where it bulges out, way up at the top and to the left. That's the chart visually screaming at us that, yep, endurance, aerobic fitness, and strength are the big dogs here. But here's where it gets really cool. When you zoom in on just one specific task, the picture can change completely. Let's take hand-to-hand combat, for example, which the experts said was the most physically complex task of all. Suddenly, the top skills aren't endurance and cardio anymore. Look at this. It's reaction time, power, and motor coordination. This one slide perfectly shows you why a generic one-size-fits-all training program just doesn't work. Different tasks require a different cocktail of skills. So what's the point of collecting all this data? I mean, what's the end game? Well, it's all about turning these insights into smarter, more targeted training. And that, in turn, leads to a stronger, more effective force. What this research really represents is a huge shift in thinking. The old way was basically general fitness for everybody. The new way, it's all about using this data to create laser-focused training that gets soldiers ready for the actual things they'll face in a real mission, not just for some generic fitness test. And this gives rise to this really powerful idea of the tactical athlete. And that's not just some cool-sounding buzzword. It's a whole new way of looking at a soldier. Not just as someone who's fit, but as a high-performance athlete whose body is scientifically conditioned for a very specific and very high-stakes job. And when you train this way, the benefits are just massive. Your training programs become way more efficient and effective. You see combat readiness and performance shoot up. And here's a big one. By training smarter, not just harder, you have the potential to seriously reduce injuries. It's a win-win-win. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The future of elite performance, whether we're talking about the military or pro sports or anything else, isn't just about more sweat. It's about being smarter. It's about being guided by data and real scientific evidence. And that kind of leaves us with a final, really interesting question to think about. If this level of scientific analysis can completely change the game for soldiers, imagine what it could do for other tactical professions out there. I'm talking about firefighters, police officers, paramedics. How could this data-driven approach transform the way we prepare them for their own critical life-saving jobs? It's a powerful idea to chew on.